Y'all ready? I'm going to have Coach open up with a few comments and then y'all can go to some questions.
Alrighty, exciting weekend on the 40 acres for sure. Obviously the draft was a huge success on our end, you know, to have 12 guys drafted coming off of 11 last year. Pretty cool to have 23 players in the last two drafts, most of any team in the country. That's now 6 first-round picks in 3 years, which is a really cool deal. And to think, you know, when we got here, I think there was 32 active NFL players from UT in the NFL, and we've had 28 guys drafted now in the last 3 drafts. So we're excited, we're pumped, we're proud of that we're developing our players and getting them an opportunity to go do that. Obviously wrapped up spring ball Saturday, had a great day, fan appreciation day. I thought was a hit. It was a lot of fun with our fans and taking pictures and signing autographs and the fire sale and all the things that went with that. And then obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what Slosh is doing with the baseball program. That was an awesome series sweep that they had this weekend. They continue to roll on, and I think that just speaks to where Texas athletics is right now too. Ton of credit to CDC, but I think of our 21 sports right now, 9 of them this year have been ranked number 1 in the country, which is pretty incredible when you look at it on that front. So a lot of really cool things happening. Obviously the month of May for us is a unique month with all of our coaches hitting the road recruiting today, me getting an opportunity to do things like this, the players wrapping up school and finals and then having a little time off before we come back in June. So it's kind of the seasons, right? We kind of go with the seasons. So we're in the transitional phase right now.
Questions? Go ahead, Sam.
Sark, over here.
That was a false start, by the way.
You mentioned coaches in the road. I'm curious, what does this time of year look like compared to what it used to be? Because you guys got officials coming in June. It feels like maybe the clock on recruiting has been pushed up a little bit because of how early guys commit. So what does it look like for you? What does it look like for your staff this time of year compared to maybe like 5 years ago?
Yeah, you know, I think from an assistant coach's perspective, where it's adjusted some, you know, it's a real balancing act. You know, a lot of what you used to do back in the day was you'd spring recruit to invite the seniors to get to camp, to get them to camp, and then get them to come to a game in the fall, and then get them to take an official visit, you know, in the wintertime, you know, December, January. That is all sped all the way up, right, when signing day is now in early December. Now, so many of the players have been on our campus last year to come to a game. They've been on our campus, you know, this spring, right, to come to practice to some degree. And now the assistant coaches are going out in spring really to home visit the kids now, which is incredible to think. Like, as a head coach, I don't do home visits anymore, which that used to be, I always felt as a head coach, might have been the most important aspect of your job was getting into the home of a recruit, especially one that was still in the decision-making process. Now the assistant coaches are doing that, and now they're on the road spring recruiting for your 27s to come to camp, right? So the whole thing is kind of sped up that way. You know, so my perspective is it has adjusted some, you know, obviously, and for the assistant coaches, it's adjusted some. And, you know, again, being adaptable, I think, is the key right now, and being really well organized and where our coaches are going and what we're trying to do. And, you know, I can tell you our guys are hammering the state of Texas this week. You know, we don't go out as early as maybe some other schools because our spring ball goes a little later, so we have to be really efficient here over the next month to make sure that we're getting the right stuff done.
Go ahead, Eric.
I'll take the 5-minute penalty now to see. With a roster that's not as experienced as it has been in the past few years, how does the kind of the developmental process and kind of assessing what you have over the summer, how does that look different this year than maybe in previous years?
Yeah, no, I think that the reason, you know, the way we did winter and the way we did spring ball was really to get us to a point to where our summer could now resemble what the summers of the past were. That's why we really wanted to take our time and teach really well in spring ball to get so many of these new faces kind of up to speed. You know, historically, again, I hate to kind of, turn back the clock all the time. But you got to remember, mostly the kids we signed didn't used to show up until June. And so you were kind of had a split team, right? You had all these vets, and then you had all these new faces, and you kind of had to balance that act. And we didn't have the ability to be on the field and do any skill development with them. And so the idea that, yes, we lost some veteran players, but of the 25 high school kids we signed, 22 of them were on campus. Now, 21 of them were in spring ball with us, and Jonah was obviously doing baseball and then coming to a little bit of football, but not a ton. So, and then with the 5 transfers that came for spring, we got those guys pretty far along now. So now when summer rolls around, I've got a handful of high school kids and I've got a handful of transfers that maybe don't know all the nuances of what we do, but really the bulk of our team now does. And so we should be able to hit the ground running pretty good in June and July, and be pretty aggressive with that. And also I think, what we're able to do this winter and spring is really start to push some guys to a leadership role that maybe weren't quite there yet. And now we feel very comfortable about where they're at in the program that they can handle that this summer.
Over here on the left.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, you're known for developing quarterbacks and receivers and running backs, but the defensive tackle position over the past couple of years with Morrow and Keandre and Byron and Tavondre, and then this past year, can you talk about being able to develop guys not only in that position, how important that is for you, and then also why you attacked it so hard in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think a couple things on that. One, I've been banging this drum since we arrived, and I think a lot of the times the offensive line got the attention of this, but you win games at the line of scrimmage, you win championships at the line of scrimmage, and when I always used to talk about big humans, again, the offensive line got a lot of that attention because we felt like that was the immediate need to ramp up that recruiting. But really on the defensive side of the ball, we were fortunate when we got here that room had some really good players in it. All 6 of those guys that have gotten drafted the last 3 years, we inherited. Murph was the only guy that was in that one class, and then Barron Sorrell, obviously in this year's class, they were in that class right when I got here in January. They signed in December. The rest of those guys were on the roster, and so we inherited those guys, and I think we did a pretty good job of continuing their development to get them to that stage. And so we like I said, we've been fortunate to have a very good defensive front. I think that allowed us to grow in the secondary. That allowed us to recruit some really high-level athletic players on the edge and at the linebacker position to help with that. But like anything, when you look at us when it comes to the portal, like we're trying to fill needs, and for a variety of reasons, we've had some real attrition at the defensive line spot. Like I said, for a variety of reasons, certain players aren't here anymore, and you have to get your numbers right. When you think about where my mind is at, I'm thinking about 16, 17 games again, and having the right amount of depth on the defensive front is critical for us to play the style of football that we want to play. And I thought we've done a really nice job of addressing needs on the defensive front, not only in the winter transfer portal, but obviously here in the spring to go along with some of our young players as they continue to develop. I think it's going to be a nice combination of players that is going to allow the rest of that defense to play the style of defense that we want to play.
Stay over here.
Hey, with the portal just now closing, what's the biggest surprise for you, either positive or negative, the results?
I don't know. I mean, because it's, I'd love to say it's not over, right? I mean, there's still a lot of guys that are out there. I'd say on our end, when you decide to go take a transfer portal punter and kicker, I'm not surprised that we lost a punter and a kicker in this process. Like that's not surprising to me. When you have a fourth-year player, offensive lineman, decide that he wants to go in the portal with an opportunity to go start somewhere else, I can understand that. I'm proud of the fact that really we didn't have any surprises. I think that's a good thing. That nobody came in to me, 2 days before the last practice to say they were going in the portal. And so I think that we've developed, like I said, we've developed a really good culture around our place where guys feel like they're getting developed and that they're part of a program that is competing for championships, that if you can do things the right way, you're probably going to have an opportunity to fulfill your dreams of playing in the NFL. They're getting a world-class education. And so there's a lot of positives that we have, and the fact that our team recognizes that, I think is a good thing. You know, like I said, I don't know if I necessarily have any surprises coming out of it.
Dan?
Steve, I guess first, what do you think of your first pitch on Friday?
I was a little disappointed. You know, it was more of a two-strike pitch. You know, I had to kind of paint the black a little bit, have a little movement on it. I was throwing maybe a little harder in warm-ups, but I got up there and Jonah was catching for me, and I knew he had a little bit of a hamstring issue, and so I didn't really want to have to make him jump out of his stance, so just try to lay it in there and make sure it was a strike. So, but I guess I'll take it. Now the real question.
On a serious note, what did you kind of make of the discourse this weekend about Quinn and his slide and kind of the conversation about whether or not he should have come back to school or kind of chase that NFL dream?
Yeah, I find it, first of all, I feel for Quinn. You know, I think Quinn was a great player for us. I think about a lot of the people who have come into this program over the last 4 years that have impacted the growth and the trajectory of our program, and he's right there near the top, if not at the top, of the impact that he's had, not only on the field but off the field. His ability to help recruit other players to come be part of our program. You know, I think he was one of the first guys, you know, through all this talk about collective and all the things that were going on in the world of NIL. He never took money from our collective. You know, all of what he did through NIL was his true name, image, and likeness, right? The intent of the rule. So on that front, I'm very grateful for what he did for our program. I think all of us, included, wish he would have gotten drafted higher. But at the end of the day, if I could have picked a place that I think is a great fit for him, I think Miami's a great fit. You know, systematically, what Coach McDaniel does is, if not exactly the same, very similar to what we do. So there's going to be a level of comfort for him of, you know, style of play. He's got some great weapons on the outside. It's a warm weather place. So in the end, I think it's a good fit for him. Now it's about taking advantage of the opportunity, you know, that presents itself. But I also think it's ironic in that so many things are written and talked about the players from a negative standpoint, that transfer schools or stay in school to take more money, like it's a negative. But all of a sudden, here's a guy that said, I wanted to leave a legacy at Texas and I wanted to go play in the NFL, and now they're knocking him for not taking the money in college. So, you know, I don't know which side of the fence everybody sits on that, but in the end, I think it just speaks to the character of him, of what he believed in and what he stood for. And nobody wanted to win a national championship much or more than Quinn on our team the last couple of years, and I don't think anybody felt it more than he did when we didn't beat Ohio State. You know, obviously with his track record of going to school there. So in the end, it wasn't about going to another school. It was about the next, you know, the next part of the journey in his career and in his life, and that was going to the NFL. So like I said, he's got a good opportunity in front of him. Now it's time to go make the most of it.
Kirk?
Steve, what would you say your biggest contentment that came out of the spring, and maybe your biggest concern in all this?
The thing that really fires me up about this team, you know, and I look back and I was thinking about this as I was driving over this morning. If you remember that class 3 years ago, the Anthony Hill, the Derek Williams, the Manny Muhammad's, the Arch, and we talked about the championship pedigree of that class. A lot of those guys had either won state championships, competed for state championships. Now that they're like juniors in our program, you can feel this sense of these guys, winning is the most important thing in their DNA. You know, Michael Taft obviously has that as part of his DNA. Trey Wisner, his time at DeSoto, Leonga Lafau at Kahuku, like, it's in their DNA, and you can feel it on our practice field. You can feel it the way these guys talk to one another. It's not just about having a good day. It's not just about having a good rep or a good period in practice. It's about seeing the forest through the trees. Like, we're doing this so that we can go do this. Like, they understand the process that they're in right now to try to go achieve what they want to achieve. And that has probably been the biggest shift that this team has provided us, where the last couple teams, they were growing through a coaching change, 5-7, 8-5. It was like, let's get there. These guys are, I think, thinking beyond let's get there. It's like, let's go win, because this is what we're used to doing. And so that's really exciting to me, like that we have a hungry team that has a little bit different mentality about them in their approach. I don't know if I have necessarily concerns right now about our team. I know we have areas that we need to continue to improve upon, and I wouldn't say there's an area in our team where we're just perfect. There's everybody, we all got work to do. But at the end of the day, it's combining this group of, like I said, that juniors, and there's a few seniors in there, with this influx of a young, talented group of guys that just came in, and then integrating the transfers into this mix so that we get the right flow. Not just in the locker room, but really, we like to play a lot of players, and how many times did I come up to you guys post-game, especially early in the season, say, hey, we played 42 guys on defense in the first half, right? And we think there's a lot of value in doing that. Now, players have to earn those opportunities to do that, but surely that's when we're at our best, because, again, I think big picture, I think the long road, the long game, and when you start talking 15, 16, 17 games, you're going to need a lot of bodies, and we're going to have to trust these guys early in the season to go do that. But again, they have to earn our trust to put them out there to go do it.
Back on the camera, Joe.
Coach, I just got back from the draft, following Matthew up there. I thought the best moment was when he got drafted by the Packers.
So cool.
In front of 200,000 people. Can you just talk a little bit about what you thought of that moment and what Matthew's kind of meant to your program?
Yeah, I can't. One of the best draft moments I've ever seen. And you guys all know I'm a football junkie. I love all this stuff. I watch it as much as I can, and I don't remember anything even remotely coming close to that. We've all seen the green room moments and the Roger Goodell moments on the stage, but I think what the NFL has done in moving the cities around and going from city to city. I got a chance to be in Kansas City with Bijan a couple years ago. And just the droves of people that come out in those communities for that moment, and for you to be the guy that gets drafted by that team at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, it's like, for the rest of his life, right? The guy's going to be known for that. So what he meant for us, it was ideally what you hope when you go to the portal, is that you get a player that you project to fit into what you do systematically, culturally, and he did exactly that. He was a blue-collar guy. I thought he got better in our program as time went on, and I thought he was playing his best football for us at the end, which is exactly what you want. Really proud of him and what he stood for. He's obviously been a great ambassador for our program, and the guy's like an infomercial about why guys should come to Texas or transfer to Texas. So we'll take it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say what was a great moment for Barron Sorrell too. How they decided to bring him to the draft too, like they knew something that Green Bay was going to draft him. So it was a great moment for both those guys.
On your right, Joe.
For the offensive line, where do you feel you're confident in right now versus things you may not know until the pads come back on in the summer?
Yeah, I would say I'm confident in our ability. That we have some high-level players on that unit. What DJ Campbell, when he's at his best, what that looks like, I'm very confident in. What Trevor Gooseby looks like at his best, I'm very confident in. When Cole Hudson, NATO, Brandon Bakers of the world, these guys, when they're on, man, it's really, really good. I think that the key for this unit, as we start to move forward, summer, fall camp, early in the season, is going to be continuity and consistency. We had such a comfort level of continuity over the past few years because of so many familiar faces that now we have to make sure that we almost force feed consistency and continuity amongst that group, and that starts with trust, right? Trust in calls, trust in footwork, trust in the guy next to you. And we've seen some practices where it's been a really beautiful thing and it feels great. We've seen other days when it's been a little bit off, which is understandable in spring practice. Like I said, I wasn't sounding the alarm in spring ball about it, but we're going to have to continue to find that growth throughout the summer and into fall camp, because it's not going to be about talent with that group. It's going to be about the level of consistency that they play with individually and collectively, and that's going to be about the continuity that they play with as a unit when they take the field.
Got time for a couple last ones. Start in the middle.
Yeah, staying with what Joe said, talk about any anecdotal stories about Kelvin Banks being from Houston as well, and Jaden Blue, what you thought about their draft situation.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago or so, we got asked about Kelvin potentially moving to guard in the NFL draft, and I kind of laughed at it. And, hey, I get it. The pundits out there are always trying to rationalize, make a story for this, that, or whatever. But at the end of the day, this guy, Kelvin Banks, from the day he stepped on our campus, I've said it time and time again, and I told it to him again after the draft, whenever a new player comes into our program, I'd point at Kelvin and say, go be like that guy. Go be like Kelvin Banks. Who he is on the field, who he is off the field, the way he carries himself, the work ethic, the pride that he puts into his work, his style of play. So we're very, very fortunate to have Kelvin, and I couldn't be more proud and happy for him and his family, his mother, his dad, everybody involved in this. So great opportunity for him. And again, I think for Jaden Blue, great opportunity for him as well. That was a heck of a running back room there, and the time that when he stepped into that room to think, here's a guy who didn't play his senior year of high school, but yet he walks in the room. There's Bijan Robinson, there's Roshan Johnson, there's Keelan Robinson, there's Jonathan Brooks, right? And just the leadership that those guys provided a young player in our program, and to watch him grow throughout his time. And now he's got a great opportunity with the Cowboys. I think he's going to go do some really cool things. And so I love the fact that, a lot has been made in our time here about how well we've recruited Dallas and South Dallas. But in reality, when you think about some of these Houston players that we've recruited and the opportunities they're getting now to play in the National Football League, I think is really good for us, that we can come into this city and into this area, recruit really good players, develop players, and watch them go on to help fulfill their dreams.
All right. Jeff?
So, relative to your expectations, now the spring's over, how impressed were you with the freshmen that you brought in at midterm? And then also, when you look at the freshman class, what characteristics, you notice any characteristics about that group just as a whole?
Yeah.
that stand out?
Yeah, this group, when you get into winter conditioning, the way we had adjusted a little, they had a little more time with Coach Beckton before our vets got going again because we had played so late. I probably got a little better chance to see them up close. And the first thing that jumped out to me was, okay, we hit the right profiles, meaning, just about at every position, we have a pretty good profile that we're trying to fit in a box. And it's a little bit of an NFL mentality, but the idea of arm length, hand size, height at certain positions, the measurables that matter. And you look at that group, it's a really good looking group. And then you could see certain players at certain kind of levels of development. And there's nothing wrong with that too, right? Everybody comes in at a different stage. The one thing I'd say about this group is they're very hungry. That they're competitive, they're hungry, and they're all really high character kids. Like we continue to recruit kids with really high character to help build into that culture that we have going on right now. How many of them really play this fall remains to be seen and really contribute. But I know a lot of them are knocking on a lot of doors, whether it's on offense, defense, or on special teams. And a few of them have really stood out to where it's like, we're gonna have a hard time keeping this guy off the field. He's making it so evident that we're gonna have to play this guy. And other guys are you can see the growth. We're like, man, what's this guy gonna look like in August? what might this guy look like in October? What might this guy look like in January, right? And so we're trying not to cast judgment on these guys now, but just, hey, he's getting better, he's improving, and let's just keep pushing him to see where they can finish up.
Yep.
Sark, how would you assess how Arch kind of handled the spring as that spotlight continues to grow, and maybe give us a glimpse of how much hard work he puts in behind the scenes that we don't get to see?
Yeah, I thought this was a really good spring for Arch in that, he's in year 3 in our system, and he's played in real games. He's played where he's had to be the guy preparing as a game plan that was built for him. He's had to prepare as a backup to know and then be ready if his number's called, and a lot of veteran players around him in that time, the last 2 years. In this spring, obviously, due to attrition, guys moving on, due to a couple injuries, he's really had to lead with the knowledge base that he gained the last 2 years. That when we're running a play, not every play might be perfect. A guy might run the wrong route, or not run a route at the right depth, or an offensive line not make the right line call to pick up a pressure. And so it really forced him to have those offline conversations when his series was done to help lead younger players, like those older players helped lead him when he was a young player. So I thought it was great for him. Now, we all see the physical ability. We all see the connection with Ryan Wingo. It happened again, Saturday on a big touchdown pass. We know the rapport that he has with DeAndre Moore, Cedric Baxter, a lot of those guys. But in the end, I think this time that he spent with a lot of those younger players is going to serve very valuable, not for us just as a team, but for him in the fall when those younger guys' numbers are called, that he's got some banked reps with those guys this spring. So I thought that part was really valuable for him.
Last one over here on the left, one more.
Hey, Kurt, since we won't see you again until media days.
Thank God. Why don't you guys go do something, man? Get a line.
You say that, and then you always say you miss us too. So there's that. What's the off-season schedule going to look like for you guys? When do guys report, and what are you going to be trying to accomplish in the summer before training camp?
Yeah, so like I said, the month of May, so right now our guys have what we call open gym, meaning this week they're finishing school, they're finishing finals. The weight room's open for them to get workouts in. We do encourage all of our guys to take some time to go home, go see their moms or dads, their aunts, uncles, whomever. Take a little bit of time. We don't get a lot of breaks. These guys, this is a year-round gig they got going right now. So they're going to take a little bit of time. They'll work out. They'll all start to migrate back because I think they get too far away. Just like all of us, we want to get back. And so they'll all kind of be back at some point in May, but we really don't officially start up until that first week of June, after Memorial Day, and that's when all the players will be there. And we'll start the summer workout program, which, as you guys know, consists of obviously a lot of lifting, a lot of running, a couple days a week. That running will be at 4 in the afternoon, intentionally, as we all know. We'll do a lot of skill development work in that time, and we'll do a lot of culture work. Our Culture Wednesdays, we'll get right back to it. We got to build the team, and we'll do that obviously through just about 2 months. And right there at the end of July, we'll head into training camp. And again, training camp is starting a little earlier again this year because again, I think we're kicking off August 30th. So it's a process, and once we get back in June, these guys have to get into the frame of mind that they're not going to be done until the end of January. So it's a long road. It's a long road, and we got to be cognizant of that. That's why I think this month is important for them to kind of take a little bit of a deep breath. Still get their workouts in, but enjoy some family time before they get back rolling again.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.